let's get to this consumer acceptance and consumer demand model, because I blog on this I try to do once every couple of weeks. I try to write something on this to kind of stimulate people's thinking and conversations, comments back from people all over the world, and I really do respect the input that I get on this Two Green Energy blog. But a lot of it seems to me, they're cultural paradigm shift types of things that couple themselves with political stances. We happen to be shooting this from Ventura, California, which is a fairly progressive part of the world. Paul drove his EV up from Santa Monica, which is probably an even more progressive part of the world. And it's an affluent community that can afford, both at the public sector and the private sector level, to do the right thing. First of all, their place is not too far from here. We have the Orange Curtain a few, 100 miles south of where we're sitting here, at which things like environmentalism, it's like a cuss word to suggest that you're doing something for a perspective of environmentalism or sustainability. And certainly there are parts of the rest of the country that have various viewpoints on this thing. What is the imperative to move to a more sustainable way of life, whether it's driving, heating our homes, etc. How do you see this playing out? The fact that I have as you got a ride in it earlier today, my 213,000-mile-old car, which I've sworn I will not replace until I can do one with an electric vehicle. So you've got an audience of one. You need an audience. Where are the rest of these people going to come from? What's going to push people over the top of this paradigm shift?
Their neighbor is going to buy one.
Okay.
Or their uncle is going to buy one. Here's how it's going to roll out. In November, Chevy Volt comes to market. In December, the Nissan Leaf comes to market. And there are a couple of others out there that are going to come to market, but those are the two big ones. And this calendar year, they'll have about 5,000 to 10,000 cars apiece for sale. And then going forward, they'll continue making more. Now, the initial people that get them are mostly on the West Coast, some in Arizona, some in Tennessee, and a few other scattered places. So they're kind of salting them around. Now, when those people buy these cars, and trust me, 100% of them are going to be bought immediately. There's not going to be a car sitting on the showroom floor for a month looking for a buyer. There are people waiting for this. So these people are going to bring their cars home, and they're going to become evangelicals like I am, and like several hundred of us are that have had these cars for 7 and 8 years. We've been driving these things. We know that they work. We know how good it feels to drive a car that doesn't pollute everybody else's air, that doesn't use foreign oil, that uses sunlight. I mean, I've been driving my car on sunlight for 7.5 years. And so that's a great feeling. And so we know that these people are going to buy these new cars, which are much better than the ones we have. And they're going to take them home, and their next door neighbor is going to learn about it. Their family and friends are going to learn about it. And the word of mouth on this is going to be through the roof. You have never seen a product come to market like this in your entire lifetime. It will take over very fast. The demand will be there. And this is with gas at $3 a gallon.
Right.
The reasons are so strong. Now, when peak oil comes, there'll be people who hold back and say, I enjoy polluting other people's air. I enjoy giving my money to our enemies. There are people like that in this country, millions of them. But when gas hits $5 a gallon, those guys are going to come crawl into the dealership, and they're going to say, please give me an electric car. Yeah. It's going to happen like that. But it'll happen, maybe 10,000 cars this year, 50,000 next year, a couple of 100,000 in 2013. And by 2015, we'll have 1 million cars on the road that drive on electricity. And it's going to expand out very quickly from there.
Yes. Well, Carlos Ghosn, the CEO of Nissan Renault, stood in front of a very large and enthusiastic audience at the LA Auto Show not last December, but the one before, and said essentially that. Yeah. In other words, he said, we're doing this. And I don't think there are too many people in the automotive industry that have more credibility than Ghosn.
Yeah.
So I can see this happening, and I can see the kind of paradigm shift internally in terms of not only I can see that my neighbor has one, he gets around fine, this should work for me, but I do think that the moral compass that lives in all of us, that respects the fact that we do need to leave a planet here for our grandchildren, is eventually going to kick in. And there are people who argue that with me, but I respond that when I was a little boy, my mother and her friends used to wear mink coats when they went out to their parties. In the early 60s. A few years later, you couldn't find a mink coat.
Yeah.
And it's because public consciousness had shifted just that fast, that it's just not, this is a form of idiocy and brutality that we just simply don't need.
Yeah.
And everybody got the message pretty much that quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that something similar happens
Oh,
here.
it very much will. And cigarette smoking is another one. You know, when we were kids, you know, people would smoke in grocery stores, you know, in the checkout line. And today, you wouldn't even conceive of that sort of thing. It's going to be the same thing. You know, 20 years from now, people will wonder, why in the world did you take so long to make the switch? And the history is being written today.
Yes.
But it'll be very clear why we didn't then, but it's also very clear why we're doing it now.